are you? And where are you going? What do you want?
Hello and welcome to Jiggers' Place, which, par for the course, having a little bit of technical difficulties. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and we're here every other Thursday to talk about all those things, first of all, to have a cocktail, and then to talk about all those things that are not business related like we do on my other 3 shows each week. So, when I planned this show, it did not even dawn on me that today is Valentine's Day, February 14th. So for all of you people like me who do not have a Valentine on this day, we can sit back and enjoy a cocktail and talk about relationships, right? I don't even know. There's obviously something in the air where I chose, Valentine's Day to talk about relationships. I don't know how that happened. It did. I guess call it fate, call it God, whatever you want to do. So I have a number of thoughts on the subject. It is, for those of you who watched any of my shows, it's one of my most passionate topics. And so in honor of, in preparation for this show, if you've seen my other shows this week, and I think even the end of last week, I mentioned several times that I would like you to think, what is the most important thing about relationships? And if you have it in your head, okay, and I've done this many, many times in workshops that I conducted for the United States Navy, 95 or more % of people get this wrong, and maybe 1% get it right. And so I'm just, odds are what you're thinking in your head is not actually the answer to that question. So hold that. I'm going to hold you in suspense. And as I oftentimes do, or really always do on this show, I have a cocktail themed to our topic, and I got with my co-cocktail creator, ChatGPT, and said, design a cocktail that is evocative of relationships. And it came up with the old-fashioned commitment. I have to tell you, love the name, because let's face it, relationships are as old as human beings. And you'll find out later why I like the name even more. So this is really basically just an old fashioned, which is a classic cocktail. It can be made with bourbon or rye. I'm going to use rye. This is my rack rye, which is bullet rye. Very, very nice rye. Great value in terms of what it costs, even with the price of spirits having gone up a little bit. And then I've got my sugar cubes, got a little bit of water, have my Angostura bitters, and I just realized I left my orange in the kitchen. Hang on, I'm going to disappear for 60 seconds. Hopefully that was less than 60 seconds. Okay, I've got my beautiful navel orange that I got from Trader Joe's today. And then you can also garnish it with cherries, Luxardo cherries, it calls in the recipe if you're on my email list and got the recipe. I don't like cherries. except for fresh cherries. So I'm not going to garnish mine with that, but you certainly can. Oh, and I need to get a rocks glass. Let's see. There we go. And these are rocks glasses I got from a company called Juniper Square. If you're in the investment business, they have a great platform for helping you work with your investors. So there's a free plug for my friends at Juniper Square. Okay, so the way we make this is we take a sugar cube, drop it in the glass, and we're going to put a couple of dashes of Angostura bitters. classic bitters. You can see everything about this is classic. I thought for a moment I'd use one of my fancier bitters, but I said no, this is a classic. Okay, I'm going to put just a little bit of water in too. It'll make it easier to muddle the sugar cube. Here's my muddler. Isn't this, it's quite beautiful. Wood with this is, I think, marble here on the end. It's such a pleasure to, use nice implements. This I got from a Williams Sonoma that was shutting down. So I think I got it for $5 or something like that. Always a treat. Okay, so we've muddled the sugar and the bitters together. Okay, and then let's see. Okay, so we're going to add the rye whiskey, and let's see. The recipe calls for 2 ounces of rye whiskey. Wow, that's a little bit more than a jigger. Okay, there we go. You can see my measure. Whoa. Okay. There's the 2 ounces. And okay, and where's my spoon? Okay, gonna go ahead and stir it. Mix it well with the sugar, the muddled sugar cube and bitters. And okay, then we're gonna put some ice cubes in it. Yep. Clunk, clunk. Just a couple more here. Basically, we want to fill the glass with ice, although I'm such a klutz, I'm not going to fill it completely full. Okay, we're going to stir it to chill. You hear the ice cubes clinking around, huh? It's a really easy cocktail to make. It seems like with the muddling and all that, maybe it's a big deal, but no, not really. And just like when we shake a cocktail and we want the shaker to get all frosty on the outside, but also shake it enough so that some of the ice melts and dilutes the cocktail and helps bring out the flavors. We do the same thing when we're stirring. It's no different. Okay. And last but not least, we're going to get, here's my peeler. So we're going to take some rind of the orange peel, okay? And it's really easy. This looks kind of fancy. This is just a potato peeler, okay? And we'll find a nice section of the orange here. And it's nice that it's good when you have a peeler that's really sharp. It makes it easier to deal with. Normally I would trim this, but I'm not going to take the time. And I'm just going to kind of squeeze some of the little bit of express the moisture in the orange peel and drop it in there. Orange. Okay, and this is our old-fashioned commitment. Very nice. Okay, see you over on the couch.
So it is a little bit chilly, not super cold, but a little bit chilly. Late afternoon here in Los Angeles. It's been raining pretty much since very late last night or early this morning. I don't know. I fell asleep at about 10 o'clock. And when I woke up, as I normally do in the middle of the night, it was raining already. Love the rain. Love the sound of the rain. Love the wet weather. Love that it's a little bit chilly. And if I don't make a sound, you probably can hear the rain tapping around outside. So I wish you a happy Valentine's Day. I'm sorry if like me you're alone, unless you want to be alone. So excuse me. So the question is, what is the most important thing in a relationship? And I think 95% of the time, the answer I get is communication, right? This has been repeated for so many decades. It's a cliche. So I want to ask you a question. What color is my vest? Okay. Now, I suspect you are saying brown. What if I told you that my vest is pink? I suspect you'd say, no, it's not. It's brown. Maybe it's on the black side of brown, but it's brown or very close to it. No, it's pink. It's brown. It's pink. Now, if you were to ask me, do you understand what I'm saying to you? And I said to you, yes, you're telling me my vest is brown. Would you agree with me that you've communicated clearly to me? And if I were to ask you, am I communicating clearly to you? And you say to me, well, you're telling me your vest is pink, but I think you're crazy. I said, no, set the crazy aside for a minute. That's a separate issue. Am I being clear in my communication that I'm saying to you my vest is pink? You would have to say, yes, you are. Are you getting my point? We are communicating absolutely clearly. And so what? We can keep going back and forth, and one of two things is going to happen. Either we're going to agree to disagree, or we're going to find some way to reconcile the difference in perception, or we're going to get into a fight and maybe start calling each other, bad names, calling each other stupid or blind, or, whatever people do when they start calling each other names. And yet we're communicating absolutely clearly. It cannot possibly be that communication is the most important thing in a relationship. It can't be. Because if that were the case, as long as people communicated clearly, there wouldn't be any problems. So this idea struck me when I was doing some research on relationships, when I was assigned to what was called the Warrior Transition Program in southern Germany. And I was tasked with redoing the reunion briefs that were given to the sailors that were coming to the Warrior Transition Program as a way stop before they came back to the United States and went back to their families. And of course, having been away from their families for anywhere from 6 months to a year, sometimes relationships were strained, relationship skills were a little attenuated, at least the kind of familial marital relationship skills were not where they ought to be. And so we did these reunion workshops to help people start thinking about a number of issues. And it was in those workshops that I found that the overwhelming majority of people thought communication was the most important thing in a relationship. And by the time we had finished our workshop, I think they were pretty well convinced that it was going to take more than communication to deal with their relationships. And excuse me one second. So I did some research while I was at WTP, and I came upon an article that was written by a researcher at Liberty University. And I wish I could remember her name, but she had researched military couples and essentially why some couples stayed together and others did not. And her conclusion was, to my mind, enormously profound. The couples that stayed together were the ones that knew that the most important thing about a relationship is the relationship. Now, you may say, oh, that's a lot of psychobabble. That's ridiculous. But take a minute and let that sink in. The most important thing about a relationship is the relationship. So to go back to my example about the color of my vest, 3 things were possible to happen. 1 is we would agree to disagree. 2 is we would find some way to reconcile our different perceptions. 3, we would get in a fight. And once fighting gets bad enough, eventually the relationship deteriorates and may even break up. Which of these, I should say, evince caring about the relationship? Well, agreeing to disagree does. That shows mutual respect. Working through to some kind of reconciliation of our differences in perspective also shows caring and respect for the relationship. Fighting does not. It just doesn't. Okay. Now, there are some people who thrive on fighting. They thrive on name calling, the contentiousness, the ups and downs, the roller coaster ride of fighting. How many of those people have truly enduring relationships, especially with someone who isn't a fighter? In my experience, it's very few. So the most important thing in a relationship is the relationship. Now, it's like so many profound things. It's very easy to say, and it's extremely difficult to accomplish. Well, I've overstated it. It's a lot of hard work to accomplish it. So I was at an event yesterday. I was asked to be a wine pourer at a kosher wine event. So without getting into the particulars of it, basically I was asked to pour wines for an Israeli winery known as Binyamina. And in the course of the evening, I met someone there, and we chatted for a few minutes. And she mentioned to me that she's been married for 31 years. Now, setting aside for the moment, she looked too young to have been married for 31 years. That in today's world, that is an absolutely laudable accomplishment. So I said to her, "How did you do it?" And she said, "Well, it hasn't been easy. There have been some very hard times between my husband and me, but we were committed to working through them." Now, you might say, "Oh, you're making this up," or "you prompt." Nope. All I did was ask her, "How did you do it?" That's it. And she was the one who gave me that response out of her own, you know, I think, wish to. I honestly, I think she was being modest, right? It's not a big commitment. It's not a big accomplishment. Look, we're committed to staying together, and so we have. Now, I'm not going to belabor the point, but I think in today's world, a commitment to stay together and work things out through thick and thin is perhaps the most laudable thing that two human beings can do. And it really brought home for me the truth of what I've been talking to people about for now. It's been 5.5 or 6 years or so. And so you may find it a little bit, I don't know what the word is, but strange that a man who's going through a second divorce has the chutzpah, as we say in Yiddish, to give relationship advice. And one of my aphorisms of life is we almost always learn more from our failures than our successes. Now, having said that, I did not set out to have 2 failed marriages. And I'm not going to talk about my current marriage because the divorce is ongoing, and we also have a daughter, and so it's not appropriate for me to talk about it in public. But I will talk for a moment about my first marriage. And the fact of the matter is, I have nothing. I don't say egregious things about my first wife. She was a very lovely woman. The fact of the matter is, at least me, I can't speak for her, but I didn't understand at the time I proposed to her, exactly what was necessary in order to make the relationship the most important thing about the relationship, to make commitment the most important thing about a relationship. And the fact of the matter was, I found out after we were married that our core values were much more different than I thought they were. And in the end, that was why we weren't able to resolve our differences, resolve the conflicts that we had. And we were getting to the point where we were seriously considering having a child, and having grown up in a family where my mother and father, I think, had different values and a lot of conflict that never got resolved. I didn't think that would be a good environment in which to raise a child. And so, in many ways, certainly at least 50% of the responsibility for that marriage breaking up was mine. But that is something that I learned from the failure of my first marriage. Is in order to be able to make the relationship the most important thing, two people have to have pretty similar values. Now, in our society, it seems like we value similar interests, and values don't play a big part in the conversation. And I think that's a huge mistake. The fact of the matter is, I can learn to enjoy, or at least be interested in, those things that interest another person, and another person can learn to enjoy, or at least be interested in, the things that interest me. And by doing so, we can enrich each other's lives. But if we have at heart a conflict in core values, when true conflict arises, there's no basis for resolving that conflict. So option number 2, in the example of the vest, is going to be difficult, if not impossible, to exercise. We're not going to find a way to be able to resolve our differences in perception or perspective. So we're left with either agreeing to disagree or arguing until the fabric of the relationship is so deteriorated that the relationship breaks. And in essence, that was the pattern, certainly, of my first marriage. We agreed to disagree for a while until the cognizant dissonance just became so great. And for me, the risk of bringing an innocent third party child into the conflict became too great. And so the relationship broke up. So these are the things I think we need to look for in when we're examining our relationships. First and foremost is, how well do our values align? Where are they similar? Where are they different? Now, let me be clear about this. Our politics are not our values. Okay? People's political positions are undergirded by their values. Now, because we do not live in a society that examines values, oftentimes people's political positions are at odds with their real core values. And so it becomes difficult for them to really understand, what do I value? And when they find that their politics are in conflict with their core values, it can become a very difficult internal struggle to resolve. Now, sometimes people change their politics. Sometimes people change their values. And sometimes people remain conflicted for years, if not decades. Okay? And so politics are not a proxy for values, especially the way politics is done in the United States today. We need to dig below that. So if you're dating someone, and you get a sense that they believe their politics are their values, but they're not able to express the true values underlying their political positions, that's a warning sign. That's someone who perhaps doesn't have a high degree of self-understanding, self-awareness. Okay, so first and foremost is two people have to understand each other's values, and they have to be sufficiently aligned that when conflicts arise, there's a reasonable opportunity for resolving the conflict to the satisfaction of both people. Now, I'm talking relationships, I'm talking about a primary relationship, a marriage, okay, as a proxy term. Okay, that's number one. Okay. Now, you may be surprised by number two, coming from a rabbi. Number two is there has to be a physical attraction. Okay. And the reason is because when we're in conflict, the physical attraction will help incentivize us to work through the conflict. Okay. I'm attracted to this person. I want to be with this person physically. Okay. Now, I think that's particularly important for a man because that's how men are. Men and women are different. You can say we're not, but we are. Okay. Just basic fact of life. And so there needs to be a physical attraction. Now, are we going to be physically attracted to each other all the time? No. Does physical attraction kind of wax and wane throughout a relationship? Yes. Absolutely. It does. Okay. But just because a physical attraction seems to be gone at one point doesn't mean that it can't be rekindled. That's a myth. Physical attraction can be rekindled. Okay. It certainly can. Next, there needs to be an emotional connection. Okay. For good or for bad, we're beyond the time in human history where marriage is essentially utilitarian, essentially business relationship. That doesn't fly in society anymore. So we call that emotional connection love, and I think that's a good word for it. Although if you ask me to define love, I'm pretty sure I cannot to your satisfaction. But they're all, just like physical attraction, love also waxes and wanes throughout a relationship. And in fact, I'm going to do another concept test with you. What is the opposite of love? If you said hate, sorry to inform you, that is not true. Hate is not the opposite of love. Hate is the partner of love. The opposite of love is indifference. Love and hate are both strong emotions. They essentially come from the same emotional source. I know when I counseled service members and their spouses about their marriages, if they loved each other or hated each other, the marriage was probably going to survive. If one or both of them was indifferent to each other, the chances the marriage would survive was vastly diminished. That's why love is a component of a relationship, an essential component of a relationship. That emotional connection needs to be there. And the fact of the matter is, we can love someone and something can happen, and in the next moment we can hate that person. But the intensity of the emotion, in a way, is what matters. Now, if we feel indifferent toward a person, does that mean that that's forever? That's also a myth. Just like, quote unquote, losing a physical attraction means the relationship is over, not true. Feeling indifferent toward a person, now the relationship is over, not true. Love waxes and wanes, just like physical attraction. Okay. If those three qualities exist in a relationship, values similar enough that two people think they can resolve most conflicts, physical attraction, and love. The only other ingredient those two people need to celebrate a golden wedding anniversary is the essential ingredient to a relationship. The relationship. The commitment to the relationship. Arguments will inevitably happen. Difficulties will arise in the relationship. Physical attraction will wax and wane. So will love. But if the commitment is there, the conflict can be worked through. The physical attraction can be overcome. And love can be rebuilt. I've seen it happen many, many times. All three of those. And the couples that I've worked with that were able to do so shared one thing in common. They all agreed that the most important thing about a relationship is the relationship. And so on this Valentine's Day, sitting here having a cocktail by myself, and going through my second divorce, my blessing for you, if you're married, is that your values are sufficiently aligned that you're able to work through conflict. You may not be able to figure that out on your own. You may need someone to help you. You may need a rabbi, a priest, a minister to help you, or a therapist, a psychologist, marriage counselor to help you figure that out. On the face of it, your values may not be aligned. That's why it's important to dig down to core values. And my next blessing is that wherever you are in the cycle of physical attraction, that you're able to rekindle it, and that you take steps to rekindle it if it's waned. And same with your love. Even if you've been married a long, long time, you should still be going out on dates. Get a babysitter for the kids if they're young. If they're old enough, leave them on their own. go on dates, spend time together, spend time alone together. That will help rekindle the physical attraction and the love, so that you can live out the most important aspect of a relationship, the relationship. And if you're like me, single, my blessing for you, if you're looking for someone, and presumably you are since you're watching this show, is that you will find someone with whom you share essentially aligned values, that you find physically attractive, and that you love. Because those three qualities will pay tremendous dividends as you and your partner strive to keep in mind throughout your life together that the most important thing about a relationship is the relationship. So I wish you cheers. And signing off, as I always do with all of my shows, to my dear, dear Marie. You are and ever will be my belle. And wish you courage at all times, my friends.